March for Life, team coverage of the 46th annual rally against abortion. We were there all day, from the morning youth mass to the walk to the Supreme Court. A promise to keep, how lawmakers are continuing to push to defund Planned Parenthood. My one-on-one with the Vice President.
I couldn't be more proud to serve alongside the most pro-life president in American history.
In part 2 of my interview with Mike Pence, he discusses the Trump administration's pro-life efforts. And legal battle. Activist David Daleiden gives us an update on his fight against Planned Parenthood. On a special edition of EWTN News Nightly for Friday, January 18th, 2019.
This is a movement founded on love and grounded in the nobility and dignity of every human life. When we look into the eyes of a newborn child, we see the beauty and the human soul and the majesty of God's creation.
President Trump promises to veto any legislation that would weaken federal pro-life policy. He addressed the 46th annual March for Life in the nation's capital in a video message. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. A day packed with prayer, peaceful protest, and the promise of a better future for the unborn and the country. People from all over the United States joined together in the nation's largest pro-life demonstration, including a bipartisan group of lawmakers.
I tell people in my state when they ask me, why are you a black female Democrat fighting for life? I say, because I'm a Christian first.
That was Katrina Jackson, a state representative from Louisiana. Among the other speakers, Vice President Mike Pence and Second Lady Karen Pence, conservative commentator Ben Shapiro, Republican Representative Chris Smith of New Jersey, and Democrat Representative Dan Lipinski of Illinois. We have team coverage for you tonight. Jason Calvi tells us about pro-life legislation on Capitol Hill. We also have part 2 of my interview with Vice President Mike Pence, but we start with Wyatt Goolsbee on the National Mall with a recap of today's march. Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. It's too soon to know the exact number of people who came here to Washington today for the march, but we can tell you the National Mall here was packed with tens of thousands of pro-lifers from across the country. They came together to celebrate the gift of life. The day began with prayer. About 18,000 people packed the Capital One Arena in Washington to pray the Rosary, then celebrate the annual Mass for Life. The Pope's personal representative in the United States, Archbishop Christophe Pierre, thanking young people for standing up for the most vulnerable.
His Holiness Pope Francis sends warm greetings.
Churches and school groups came from across the country, Virginia, Ohio, and beyond. These Hoosiers are part of Indiana University's Students for Life.
On my campus, we face a lot of opposition for my views. So to come here and be with 500,000 of my closest friends who believe all the same things, it's just really empowering and really encouraging.
Vice President Mike Pence and Second Lady Karen Pence surprised the crowds.
Listen to the truth and know that he who said, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you," also said, "I will never leave you or forsake you," as you stand for his creation, as you stand for the right to life.
Denise, who lives in Virginia Beach, was told by her doctor in 1985 that there was a medical risk to her unborn child and it would be better to abort. She says that was never an option for her.
Being a Christian, I know life begins at conception, and I couldn't, how could I live with myself if I had done something to her? So I just couldn't do it. I could never do it.
Her daughter Erin, who's now a mother herself, says she feels blessed to be able to be a pro-life witness.
My parents are amazing, and I'm so glad that they stuck to their beliefs and gave me life, because I've had a really great life so far.
After the rally, pro-life supporters marched to the Supreme Court. The 46th annual march began in 1974 with just a few thousand. Founder Nellie Gray hoped to rally Americans against Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court case that legalized abortion in the United States. Organizers now call it the largest annual human rights rally in the world. The March for Life is welcoming a growing number of pro-lifers from outside of the United States. Today that included visitors from Canada, Europe, and even Australia. Lauren?
Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby reporting from the National Mall. Thank you, Wyatt. Vice President Mike Pence has been a longtime pro-life advocate, signing numerous pro-life measures during his time as governor of Indiana and making history in 2017 as the first vice president to address the March for Life in person. I spoke with the vice president yesterday about the Trump administration's commitment to protecting the unborn. You're going to be speaking at the Rose Dinner. Tell me why you're doing that.
Well, first, let me just say that I couldn't be more proud to serve alongside the most pro-life president in American history. You look at the record of this administration from the very first day that he was in office. President Trump took action to reinstitute the Mexico City policy to make sure the taxpayer dollars were not going overseas to organizations that support or promote abortion. It was my great honor to cast the tie-breaking vote to allow states to defund Planned Parenthood. We've made decisive steps to promote life around the country and, frankly, around the world. And of course, we've appointed strong conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And the opportunity to come to the Rose Dinner to celebrate what the American people have accomplished in electing this president and this administration in the cause of life is a great joy for me.
The theme is pro-life, pro-science, yet the administration is getting some pushback from pro-life groups for funding fetal tissue research. I've talked to doctors who say that there are ethical alternatives. So why is that funding still happening?
Well, what we've done at the National Institute of Health is revisit that policy that was reported publicly, and I know that that we're working to make sure that the president's commitment to the sanctity of life is reflected in all of the policies of this administration. But let me say, one of the most encouraging things in the cause of life to us is that as science advances, as we better understand the development of that child in the womb, I think it's one of the reasons why life is winning in America, why more and more people in this country are recognizing the right to life and celebrating that, ensuring that we promote that. It's a great honor for me.
And yet mainstream media will spend hours of coverage on the Women's March, which is the day afterward, and give scant, if any, coverage to the March for Life. Why do you think there's that disparity?
Well, we're pretty accustomed to the liberal bias in the national media.
I think it's called fake something, fake news.
I have to tell you, Lauren, my family and I have been going to the March for Life for about 2 decades, and to see the tens of thousands of people, particularly young people, that come out and make that stand, and one speaker after another, and in the cold of winter, on that dark anniversary of Roe versus Wade, is so inspiring. My hope is that this year might be different, but I won't be surprised if we see the liberal media once again look the other way. But the great news is, and you see this in surveys, but I hear it across the country, is that life is winning in America. I mean, the cause of life has connected particularly with this rising generation that's recognizing the right to life in more and more numbers every day. It gives me great confidence that we will once again, in our lifetimes, see the right to life put back at the center of American law.
A top White House official tells News Nightly the president is proud of his administration's pro-life work and was moved by so many people marching for life.
The president is encouraged to see so many young people who are fighting for this cause. The president's very proud of all the work that the administration has done to push forward a pro-life agenda. He's very supportive of those of us here that work hard every day to help shape those policies.
Mercedes Schlapp, a Catholic, says the president is committed to the fundamental freedoms of the right to life and the right to conscience. During the rally, Senator Steve Daines of Montana announced the first ever pro-life caucus in the Senate. Lawmakers have proposed a flurry of legislation to coincide with the march. And despite a Democratic majority in the House, they are not giving up on defunding Planned Parenthood. Correspondent Jason Calvi reports on the latest efforts. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. 35 GOP senators are sponsoring a bill to do just that. The latest measure faces tough odds. And now that Democrats control the House, the nation's largest abortion provider is renewing its efforts to expand abortion. But despite my many attempts, their new president wouldn't answer my questions. As a medical doctor, when does life begin, would you say?
Can I?
Dr. Wen? Dr. Lena Wen took over as president of Planned Parenthood in November.
She has a meeting right now.
Dr. Wen, please.
I have a meeting that I need to get to.
Last year's annual report shows their revenue was $1.4 billion. Why should the government give you another $500 million? Dr. Wen? Dr. Wen, as a medical doctor, when does life begin, would you say, Dr. Wen? Dr. Wen wouldn't answer our questions, and the House's pro-choice caucus is in her corner.
And as the chairwoman of the House Appropriations Committee, I will fight to protect Planned Parenthood and the rights of women to make their own health choices.
So pro-life bills will likely fail, but Republican Senator Roger Wicker says voting on them is still important.
We do it every year for the same reason the abolitionists pressed that slavery was wrong. They didn't make it for years and years and years, but they finally made the case. We do it every year because technology gives us new information every year about what that little baby is.
While those babies can't speak, these Nebraska high school students can.
We're out here just to be the voice for the voiceless and to speak for those who can't speak for themselves and to fight for their rights and to respect all human life.
Even lives conceived by rape, like the son of Yoey Reyes.
A baby is a baby no matter what, no matter the circumstances of the birth. And in cases of rape specifically, the only thing that abortion does is cover the crime so that the criminal can continue to do it.
They're not giving up, praying outside a Planned Parenthood clinic in D.C.
It's very emotional just to know what's going on right inside next to what we're standing next to, and it's just hard to think about, but just pray to God that He can change those hearts inside.
And I rejoice that you have conquered death by the resurrection of your Son. I am ready to do my part in ending abortion.
2017, Planned Parenthood received $543 million in government money, and Medicaid is the largest source of those funds. The Trump administration proposes a rule to stop abortion providers from receiving from a different funding stream, federal family planning money. Lauren?
Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi. Thank you, Jason. Coming up, why a pro-life activist says Planned Parenthood's lawsuit against him could help the fight for the unborn. My next guest says Planned Parenthood wants to destroy him. David Daleiden went public in 2015 with undercover videos of an investigation of the nation's largest abortion provider. He says his videos prove the organization is selling baby body parts for profit. Since then, Daleiden writes, I've had my home raided by armed agents, my laptops, hard drives, and recording equipment seized, and my life put through a ringer. David Daleiden joins us now. Welcome back to our broadcast.
Great to be back with you.
Your undercover videos have been a game changer in the pro-life movement. They prompted three congressional investigations into Planned Parenthood, and in 2017, the Department of Justice opened an investigation, a federal one.
Yep.
All right, what happened? Where is that investigation? What did the DOJ do?
That's a good question. That's a question that everybody is still asking, I think, especially this week for the March for Life. There hasn't been an update publicly from DOJ yet. I think I probably speak for most pro-life Americans when we say that we just hope that the Department of Justice will do its job and hold Planned Parenthood accountable to the law the same as any other organization.
Well, Planned Parenthood isn't taking this sitting down. They're suing you. Where are you in that?
Yeah. So the Planned Parenthood lawsuit, which is in federal court in San Francisco, is going to trial in September. That's going to be a very big event because it's going to involve putting all of these allegations and all these issues on public jury trial in September. That means that the depositions are starting the next 3 weeks. A ton of Planned Parenthood witnesses, their top-level people, are going to be under oath. We're basically going to do all the interviews all over again, this time videotaped under oath. And they're either going to admit to their criminality or they're going to commit perjury trying to cover it up.
Your investigation ignited the debate over the use of human fetal tissue research for biomedical purposes. Under the Trump administration, the Department of Health and Human Services is conducting a comprehensive review over the contracts that it has using fetal tissue research. I asked the Vice President about it. He says, yes, it's underway. There is no conclusion yet. What is your message to them? What did you learn in your work?
Yeah, what we learned is that the way that fetal body parts harvesting and experimentation goes on in our country, funded and fueled by taxpayer dollars, is reprehensible, it's barbaric, and it's not defensible either under the law or under typical bioethical rules. So it's something that needs to stop. They're spending over $100 million in taxpayer money on it each year now. That number has increased in the past 2 years. It hasn't gone down.
It seems odd for an administration that is very pro-life.
It is. It's very odd. I mean, and ultimately, it's unconscionable for the Health and Human Services Department of a pro-life administration to be every month basically setting these abortion quotas, having a number of orders of fresh fetal body parts. These are their own words and their own contracts that they're ordering and expecting to receive from abortion clinics every month for taxpayer-funded experimentation. That's wrong, and that needs to stop.
Pro-life leaders are still trying to defund Planned Parenthood. The latest attempt failed. Now they want to take away Title X funding, about $50 million in federal family planning money, which is a little bit different. Will this directly impact Planned Parenthood's ability to perform abortions? Should they have gone down this road?
Definitely. It's a very good step in the right direction that the administration is going to actually enforce the law on Title X as it's written in the authorizing statutes to make sure that taxpayer money does not go to subsidize programs like Planned Parenthood, where abortion is considered, elective abortion is considered a method of family planning. That's not permitted by the statute. It never should have been there in the first place. And so all the administration is doing is enforcing the law as it's written and getting taxpayer money out of the abortion industry.
All right, we're going to leave it there. David Daleiden, founder for the Center for Medical Progress. Thank you so much for joining us. Up next, on the March for Life, a couple tells us their personal message about abortion. Earlier today, we heard stories of the impact of abortion on women and families of all walks of life. My next guest shared their experience with the crowd outside the Supreme Court today after the march. They are part of the Silent No More awareness campaign working to expose the trauma of abortion. Della and John Seeley are in town from Michigan. Welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming to share your story. You were teenagers when you became pregnant and then made the decision to abort. You stayed together, you got married, you have children, you have grandchildren, but you never talked about that abortion. It must have just been so painful, Della.
Yes, very much so. I was 17, senior in high school, very scared when this happened. It was a very hard decision. I didn't know when I walked in, I mean, my husband now, John, we walked in the clinic and decided to make this decision. And when I came out of the clinic that day, I was not the same person anymore.
John, you were sitting there in the clinic. What were you thinking at that time?
Well, you know, I just thought, this is all wrong, you know, why are we here? But I never really said nothing.
Did you blame yourself?
Yeah, I blamed myself. I felt like a coward, you know. I just felt so ashamed, and I just never said, no, we can do something different. Let's not do this, you know. So I always blamed myself inside for many years.
How did the two of you come together to talk about this? What was it that actually made you bring up this terribly painful part of your past?
It was Rachel's Vineyard, a beautiful healing ministry, post-abortive healing ministry. And we went in 2004, and there was tremendous healing. So many men and women there.
What made you decide to go, John? Why did you say, let's go to Rachel's?
Well, through the years, it always bothered us. And we always, we talked a little bit about it here and there, about the decision. Then she wanted to go to Rachel's Vineyard, and I don't know. And it's kind of like we went to Rachel's Vineyard. We sat in the car, do we really want to go in there?
Oh, so you were sitting there thinking, do we want to go through this? And it was healing? Did your Catholic faith help you?
Yes,
How?
very much so.
Explain to the audience how you felt that healing. How did it come to you?
I came to the march back in 2004, and I had been to confession for the 7th time because I couldn't feel that mercy and forgiveness. In the confessional, being at my first March for Life, the priest said to me, there's no sin greater than God's mercy. And do you believe he died for you? And of course I knew he died for me. So I came out of the confessional and I just dropped down on my knees and it was gone. The forgiveness, it was like, he's merciful. There's no sin that I did. And I believe he died for me on that cross.
John, do you talk about this with your children?
Yeah, we can talk about it now with our children. We talk about it as we raised them up, and we told them that they had a sister that we aborted and stuff. It was hard, but they know.
Well, you are just such an amazing witness to the power of Christ, to the power of healing. And I know it must be really hard for you to tell the story, and especially to sit in a TV studio and tell it to millions of people. So thank you. Thank you so much for all that you do for the pro-life movement, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Lauren.
My interview with Vice President Pence about his wife Karen's new job has ricocheted across the country, making news just about everywhere, as you saw on platforms like the Associated Press, NBC News, Politico, The Hill. It goes on and on and on. The second lady took a job at Emmanuel Christian School in Northern Virginia, and it's been criticized by mainstream media because the school requires teachers and students to follow traditional teachings on marriage. Here's how my interview played on the networks.
And later we'll hear from Vice President Mike Pence says the second lady faces some harsh criticism for going to work at a conservative Christian school.
Vice President Mike Pence defending his wife's new job teaching at a Christian school that bans gay and lesbian students and parents. Vice President responding to the criticism in an interview with the Catholic news network EWTN.
We've been doing this for the last couple of days. I've been getting a lot of questions about how you can discriminate against a child for his parents' sexuality or even these are
Look,
K
nothing
through
Christian
8.
values about
K through
those
8.
values.
Well, Lauren, my wife and I have been in the public eye for quite a while. We're used to the criticism, but I have to tell you, to see major news organizations attacking Christian education is deeply offensive to us.
Clearly, this issue has resonated with Christians at a very deep level, and here's why. Too many in the secular society fail to understand that a religious school has every right to build a community with people who share common beliefs. While excluding certain people may not be acceptable for a public school, a religious school based on faith has every right to set standards for those who follow the teachings of the church, synagogue, or mosque. Vice President Pence has every right to take offense at those who questioned his wife's decision to teach at Emmanuel Christian School. And Karen Pence shouldn't be targeted for criticism just because her husband works for President Trump. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, thank you for watching. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Let's keep in touch online. Follow me at Lauren Ashburn on Twitter and at Lauren Ashburn EWTN on Facebook. We will leave you tonight with more images from today's March for Life.
Seriously, guys, I can't even see the end of the crowds out there. This is unbelievable.
Good night, and God bless you.